Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm showing you how to make a delicious coffee loaf cake. So this recipe is actually one of my recipes that's featured in my new book. It's my coffee sponge, but this time I'm not going to make it in round tins. I'm going to be baking it into a loaf tin, and I'm going to be topping it off with some coffee buttercream, which is a silky, smooth, incredible balance between the sponge and the frosting. And it's just one of those cakes that when it reaches 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon and you want something sweet, this is just perfect. So this is why I love this recipe so much, is because it's so versatile. You could pretty much bake it in any tin, and of course it's easy to make. So I'm starting off with some melted butter in my larger bowl, and into the bowl I'm going to go in with my light brown sugar. Now usually I use white sugar, but for coffee cake I want something a bit more caramel. So the darker sugar gives that more caramelly flavour to it. So in it goes, along with the vanilla. And I'm just going to use my whisk to incorporate it. And into the butter and sugar, I'm going to add my espresso. So this is 50 ml of pure espresso, and it's going to go into the wet ingredients, and I can mix that right in. And I haven't even done much else, and it already smells so good. I can smell the caramel from the sugar, I can smell the coffee. Now let's make it into a cake. So in goes my eggs. And mix them in. And the reason why I'm using a whisk isn't to incorporate any air, it just helps break up the ingredients and mix them in. And then in here, I've got my flour. So I'm going to add most of it, but leave behind a couple of tablespoons, and you'll see why. And I'm going to start incorporating the flour. Now the reason why I left this flour behind is because I want to add nuts, and when you're adding anything to a batter, it's good to toss it around in some flour to avoid anything sinking in the batter. So it's completely optional to add the nuts, but I just find pecan and coffee cake, one of the best things. Also works really well with walnuts, or you could just totally skip out on the nuts. But I've put the nuts in here, and I'm just going to toss them around to get a nice coating in the flour. And so this is just taken from the weighed out flour from the recipe. And then into the batter it goes. And now I'm just going to fold the nuts in using a spatula. And that is the batter done. I told you it was easy and nice and quick. So what I've got here is a very large lined loaf tin. Now loaf tins come in all different sizes. This is a large one, which means that it fits my regular batch. If you are using a smaller one, then you may want to divide the batch either in half or divide it into 3. If you always have leftover batter, you can just fill an extra small cake tin and have an extra piece of cake. Or you can even fill a cupcake tray and make some coffee cupcakes out of it. There's no reason for any batter to go to waste. So I can now pour this into the loaf tin. And you don't want to fill it more than 2/3 full. If it comes too high, it's then going to rise and completely overspill in the loaf tin. So like I said, this size was perfect for this quantity of cake, which you can also find the recipe below and in my new book, don't forget. But if you filled up your loaf tin and it's too full, you can always just take some batter out and cook it elsewhere. So this is now going to bake for about 50 to 55 minutes in a preheated oven at 160 degrees with a fan, or 180 without a fan, until it's completely golden brown and cooked through, and your kitchen is going to be filled with the most wonderful coffee, delicious smells there is, and that's a good signal that it's done as well. Anyway, into the oven it goes, and I can't wait to see what it looks like when it comes out. I told you that when this cake is ready, your kitchen will be filled with the most magical smells. and it really is. It smells unbelievable. I can smell the coffee and the richness of the sponge. Now, my trick to a coffee cake is to actually soak it in coffee syrup. So this is equal amounts to espresso and sugar, and I recommend soaking this cake whilst it's still hot because it will absorb it that much easier. So I'm just going to go on top of the cake and soak it. And this just enhances that coffee flavor so much, and also gives a longer shelf life to the cake, if it lasts that long. So I'm gonna let this cake completely cool down before taking it out the tin and then go on to icing. So the cake has completely cooled down, so I'm going to take it out the tin. Should slide out quite easily. And I'm just going to open up the paper just to make sure that that last bit of heat escapes, because you don't want to be going on with any buttercream if the cake is still warm, because obviously the buttercream is just going to melt. So I'll leave this to the side. And now it's time to make the buttercream. Now I've decided to make an American buttercream because it's a loaf cake and there's only one layer of icing. It's okay to have a sweeter icing. And also I really like coffee American buttercream, but it's totally up to you which buttercream or topping you want. So what I've got is my butter in my mixer bowl, and I want to soften that up. So I'm going to beat it on high speed for about a minute. And you want the butter nice and soft before you go in with the powdered sugar. And just to protect my face and kitchen for that matter, I'm going to place a tea towel over the top before I press start, because there's a lot of powdered sugar in there. And let the majority of the sugar mix in before I turn the speed up. Okay, so usually at this point I would add the milk, but I want to add coffee, and if you add too much liquid, the buttercream is going to be way too runny, so I'm going to replace the milk with the coffee. And this is just a cooled down espresso. I put that in. And then mix it on a high speed until the buttercream's ready. Creamy, yummy buttercream ready to go. I'm just going to do one scrape down of the bowl to make sure all those butter lumps are inside. So I've got this slate just to put the cake on, so I'm going to carefully take the paper off. It's nice and sturdy. And then you can apply the buttercream or icing however you like with a piping bag, but I'm going to go rustic and I'm just going to spoon it on and spread it out with a palette knife. So I think that's like a classic way of decorating one of these cakes. I love when it's just got random swirls and textures within the icing. So what you can do is add some extra decorations on. If you've got some spare pecan nuts, you can also crush them and put them on the top. But I'm going to leave it like this, and I cannot wait to take a slice out because just the smell of this is literally making me salivate, and I want to see what's in the inside too. Oh wow. That looks and smells even better than I expected, and I can also see that very slight moist top where the sugar syrup has seeped into the sponge. I'm going to cut off a little bit for me to try. Wow, it was worth the wait. The proportion of buttercream to nuts to cake is just perfect. All I need now is a nice cup of tea and to sit myself in front of the TV. So try this out yourself, you won't regret it. I've put all the recipe below, but of course you can find the cake recipe in my new book, which you can also find the link to below. In the meantime, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and check out my other videos too of more recipes and technique tutorials. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you very soon.